John Martinez stared out the window of his apartment in Washington, D.C., watching the rain fall in sheets across the Capitol. The comm unit on his desk beeped for the third time. He knew who it was. He knew what they wanted. And he still wasn't sure how to respond. 6 months ago, John had been a regular diplomat handling relations between the United States and several Southeast Asian nations. Now the United Nations Space Agency wanted him to represent all of humanity to 17 alien species. John finally walked to his desk and accepted the call. The stern face of General Alan Powell appeared on screen. "Ambassador Martinez, I trust you've reviewed the materials we sent?" John nodded. "Yes, sir. It's a lot to take in. The Galactic Concord won't wait forever for our answer. They've been patient for 5 years while humanity adjusted to the reality of alien life. Now they want formal diplomatic relations." John ran a hand through his short black hair. At 45, he was neither young enough to be starry-eyed about aliens nor old enough to be completely set in his ways. That's why they had chosen him, they said. "Why me, General? Surely there are diplomats with more seniority." Powell's expression didn't change. "Most of our top diplomats are too old to adapt to entirely new forms of diplomatic protocol. And frankly, you have the right psychological profile. You're cautious but not fearful, open-minded but not naive." John looked down at the stack of files on his desk. Each one contained information about an alien species of the Galactic Concord. The name still felt strange on his tongue. The Dralids, the Vox, the Zith Collective, the Mirans, and 13 others. "I'll need time to study all this properly. That's why you'll have 6 months of intensive training at our Nevada facility before you leave for the Concord station." John picked up one of the files, the one about the insect-like Zith Collective. The images inside showed creatures that looked like 8-foot-tall praying mantises with 4 arms and complex eye structures. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow. A car will pick you up at 600 hours. The screen went dark before John could respond. He looked around his apartment at the life he was about to leave behind. No wife, no kids, just a career that had consumed him. Maybe that's why they picked him too. No messy attachments. 6 months passed in a blur of training. John learned about alien biology, psychology, customs, and languages. He practiced using translation devices and adapting to different gravity environments. He studied the brief history of humanity's contact with the Concord and the careful exchanges that had happened so far. The Nevada facility was hidden deep in the desert, a sprawling complex of buildings where scientists, military personnel, and diplomats worked together to prepare Earth for its place in a much larger galactic community. John made friends with some of his fellow trainees. Dr. Olivia Wright, a xenobiologist with bright eyes and a quicker mind. Sam Daniels, a cultural expert who could explain the complexities of alien art forms. Lieutenant Peter Collins, a stone-faced military man who rarely smiled. And Carol Hayes, a technology specialist who helped John understand the advanced systems he would be using. They would be his team at the embassy, his only human companions in an alien environment. They trained together, ate together, and occasionally drank together when the pressure became too much. On his final night before departure, John found himself alone in his quarters, packing the few personal items he was allowed to bring. A knock at his door surprised him. "Come in," he called. The door opened to reveal Admiral Susan Blackwood, head of Earth's Space Defense Force. John had only met her once before during his initial briefing. She was tall, with steel-gray hair pulled back, in a tight bun, and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything they saw. "Ambassador Martinez, may I have a word?" John gestured to the only chair in the room. "Of course, Admiral." Blackwood remained standing. "I wanted to personally deliver your final briefing materials." She handed him a small data pad. "This contains additional information that wasn't included in your general training." John took the pad. "What kind of information?" "Insurance," Blackwood said simply. "The kind we hope you'll never need to use." She turned to leave but paused at the door. "Martinez, you seem like a good man. Remember that your primary duty is to humanity, not to the Conquered, no matter how friendly they may seem." With that, She left, the door sliding shut behind her. John stared at the data pad in his hand. It was smaller than the others he'd been given, matte black with no markings except for a small red symbol, a shield with a sword behind it. His curiosity got the better of him. He activated the pad and placed his thumb on the scanner. After a moment, a single word appeared on the screen. Safeguard. The files that followed made John's blood run cold. Detailed analyses of each alien species, not just their biology and psychology, but their weaknesses, points of vulnerability in their physiology, susceptibility to specific toxins, electromagnetic frequencies that disrupted their neural patterns, and most disturbing of all, precise plans for how humanity could exploit these weaknesses if necessary. The Dralid's respiratory system collapsed under specific atmospheric contaminants. The crystalline vox shattered when exposed to certain sound frequencies. The Zith collective's hive mind could be disrupted with targeted electromagnetic pulses. For each species, Earth had developed a plan for their defeat or destruction. John sat in shock, reading file after file until the early hours of the morning. This wasn't diplomatic preparation. This was preparation for war, and he was being sent as humanity's representative with this knowledge in his possession. He considered reporting the pad, telling someone about its contents, but who? Admiral Blackwood had given it to him directly. This wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. As dawn broke over the Nevada desert, John made his decision. He would keep the pad and its terrible secrets. Knowledge was power, and perhaps having this knowledge would allow him to prevent its ever being used. He would represent humanity with honesty and good faith, but he would not be naive. At 800 hours, John stepped onto the shuttle that would take him to the orbital station. From there, he would board the Concorde vessel that would transport him to their central diplomatic hub, billions of miles from Earth. His team followed behind him, each lost in their own thoughts about the journey ahead. As the shuttle's engines ignited, John felt the weight of two responsibilities: to represent humanity well, and to protect it at all costs. The data pad rested in his inner pocket, close to his heart, a reminder of humanity's fear and determination. The shuttle rose into the blue sky, carrying Earth's first official ambassador to the stars. The journey to the Galactic Concord Central Station took 3 weeks. John Martinez spent most of that time studying his files and trying to ignore the weight of the small black data pad hidden among his belongings. His team prepared in their own ways. Olivia reviewed biological data, Sam practiced alien greetings, Peter checked security protocols, and Carol tested their communication systems. The first sight of the station left them all speechless. It hung in the emptiness of space at the perfect balance point between 3 stars, a massive structure that resembled a wheel with spokes extending outward. Lights glittered across its surface like stars themselves, and ships of various designs moved around it in careful patterns. "It's beautiful," Olivia whispered as they approached. John nodded but said nothing. He was thinking about the safeguard files, wondering how many of those ships carried weapons that could destroy Earth if war ever came. Their ship docked with a gentle bump. A voice spoke over the intercom in perfect English. "Welcome, representatives of Earth. Please proceed through the main airlock. Your guide will meet you there." The 5 humans gathered their belongings and moved through the airlock. The air on the other side smelled different, not bad, just strange, with hints of unfamiliar scents. Waiting for them was a being unlike any they had seen before. It stood on 2 legs but was covered in fine blue-green scales. Its face had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and its hands had 7 fingers each. "Welcome," it said, its mouth moving strangely around the human words. "I am Keelan, 3rd diplomat of the Mirren delegation. I will show you to your embassy suite." John stepped forward. "Thank you, Diplomat Keelan. I am Ambassador John Martinez, of Earth. These are my colleagues." He introduced each member of his team. Keelan made a flowing gesture with both hands. "It is an honor to meet you all. Please follow me." They walked through wide corridors filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some flew through the air on gossamer wings, Others moved on multiple legs or glided along on what looked like fields of energy. The humans tried not to stare, but it was difficult. The station houses representatives from all 17 member species of the Conquered, Keelan explained. Your embassy suite is in the outer ring between the Vox and the Traldar delegations. They passed through several security checkpoints, each guarded by different species working together. John noted how they communicated, some through sounds, others through light patterns or movements. Finally, they reached a door marked with the flag of Earth, the blue United Nations symbol that had been chosen to represent all of humanity. In space. These will be your quarters and your official embassy, Keelan said. The common areas are on this level. The council chambers are 2 levels up. You will receive a schedule of upcoming meetings tomorrow. Kellen showed them how to use the door controls, the environmental systems, and the communication panels. Everything was labeled in multiple languages, including English. Is there anything else you require? Keelan asked. John looked at his team. They all shook their heads. Not at this time, thank you, John said. We appreciate your assistance. After Keelan left, the humans explored their new home. The embassy suite had 5 private sleeping quarters, a common area, a small kitchen stocked with Earth foods, and a formal meeting room. Large windows looked out into space, showing the 3 stars that surrounded the station. This is really happening, Sam said, staring out at the view. We're the first official human embassy in space. Let's not get carried away, Peter said, already checking the rooms for surveillance devices. We're here to represent Earth's interests, not to make friends. John watched them, thinking about the contrast between their approaches. Sam saw opportunity. Peter saw danger. Both were right, in their own ways. That night, after the others had gone to sleep, John sat alone in the common room with the black data pad. He read through the safeguard files again, looking at the plans for the Mirrans like Kellen. According to the files, their species had a critical vulnerability to specific frequencies of ultraviolet light. A weapon using those frequencies could blind or kill thousands of them in seconds. John felt sick. Keelan had been nothing but helpful and courteous. The idea of using such knowledge against the Mirrans seemed monstrous. Yet someone on Earth had developed these plans just in case. The next morning brought their first official meeting, a formal introduction to the Conquered Council. The 5 humans dressed in their best diplomatic uniforms and followed a new guide, this one a tall, 6-limbed being named Vortak of the Dralid species. The council chamber was a large circular room with raised platforms arranged in a semicircle. Each platform held representatives from one species. In the center was a round table where speakers could address the council. John and his team were announced and led to the center table. Looking around, John could identify most of the species. From his studies, the crystalline Vox glittering under the lights, the insectoid Zith with their complex eyes, the massive Traldar with their thick armored skin, and others. A being that seemed made of pure light floated forward. This was the current head of the council, a Luminari named Elsha. Representatives of Earth, Elsha said, its voice somehow both in the air and directly in John's mind. We welcome you to the Galactic Conquered. For 5 of your years, we have observed your world and engaged in limited exchanges. Now we open our council to you, as the first step toward full membership for your species. John stepped forward. His mouth felt dry, but he kept his voice steady. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I thank you for this welcome. We come seeking friendship, knowledge, and peaceful cooperation with all species of the Conquered. As he spoke, John couldn't help but think of the black data pad hidden in his quarters. His words felt hollow, knowing what he knew. Yet he continued, with the prepared speech, promising cooperation and expressing hope for the future. The formal introductions continued for hours. Each species greeted the humans, some warmly, others with obvious caution. John studied them all, matching faces and forms to the information in his files, both the official ones and the secret safeguard plans. By the end of that first day, John's head was swimming with names, species, titles, and protocols. But one thing was clear. The job ahead would be far more complex than any diplomatic mission on Earth. Here he wasn't just bridging cultural differences. He was bridging evolutionary ones. As they returned to their embassy suite, Olivia summed it up. They're so different from us and from each other. How do they make this work? John had no answer, but he wondered if every ambassador here carried their own version of the safeguard files, contingency plans for what to do if the peace ever failed. The thought didn't comfort him at all. 3 months passed in the Galactic Concord station. John Martinez and his team settled into a routine of meetings, cultural exchanges, and careful negotiations. John learned to tell the different Zith castes apart by the patterns on their exoskeletons. Sam mastered the flowing hand movements that the Mirrans used to show respect. Olivia spent hours in the Biological Research Center, fascinated by the diversity of life forms. Carol worked with alien technicians to improve their translation systems. Even Peter seemed to relax slightly, though he still checked their rooms for listening devices every night. John kept the black datapad locked in a hidden compartment in his private quarters. He hadn't looked at it since their second week on the station. He wanted to believe he didn't need it. Then the crisis began. It started with a simple message from Earth. A mining ship, the North Star, had disappeared while working in a disputed area of space near Zith territory. 34 humans were missing. Earth demanded answers. John was called to an emergency meeting with the Zith ambassador, a Queen caste representative named Tizikt. Her large compound eyes reflected the light. In the meeting room as she faced John across the table, "Ambassador Martinez," she said, her voice clicking through the translator. "Your government accuses my people of an attack on your mining vessel. This is false. The Zith Collective has not attacked any human ships." John kept his face neutral. "I'm not here to make accusations, Ambassador Tizikt. I'm here to find the truth. 34 of my people are missing. Their last transmission mentioned unusual activity near their position." Tizikt's antennae twitched rapidly. "The region where your ship was operating is close to a Zith breeding ground. Perhaps your miners disturbed our young without realizing it, but we did not attack them." "Then help us find them," John suggested. "Join the search effort, show your good faith." "We cannot," Tizikt replied. "That region is sacred during breeding season. No Zith would enter it, even to help you." The meeting ended without progress. John reported back to Earth, trying to calm the growing tensions. But things quickly got worse. Earth's Space Defense Force moved 3 warships closer to Zith territory. The Zith responded by activating their defense swarms, clouds of small deadly spacecraft that moved like insects in perfect coordination. Other species began taking sides. The Dralids supported Earth, citing old rivalries with the Zith. The Vox backed the Zith, arguing that humans were too aggressive and unpredictable. The Mirrans tried to stay neutral, while the Traldar openly prepared for war. 7 days after the North Star disappeared, the Council called an emergency session. John and his team arrived to find the chamber in chaos. Representatives argued with each other in multiple languages. Some species that communicated through color patterns were flashing warning hues that made John's eyes hurt. Elsha, the Luminari Council head, called for order. The room gradually quieted. "This situation threatens the peace of the conquered," Elsha said. "We must find a resolution before military actions escalate further." Tizikt stood on her platform. "The humans send warships to our territory based on no evidence. They violate our sacred spaces during breeding season. This cannot be tolerated." A human voice came from the communication system. General Alan Powell from Earth. "We have evidence that Zith vessels were in the area when our ship disappeared," Powell said. "We demand the return of our people and compensation for our losses." Tizikt's body language shifted to what John recognized as extreme agitation. "This is a lie, a provocation. Humans plant false evidence to justify aggression." Chamber erupted again. John watched as years of careful diplomacy unraveled in minutes. He thought of the 34 miners probably dead. He thought of the thousands who would die if war broke out. And he thought of the black data pad in his quarters. That night, John called an emergency meeting with his team. "We need options," he said. Earth and the Zith are on the brink of war and half the conquered is choosing sides. Peter leaned forward. Our orders are clear. If hostilities break out, we evacuate to the Earthship waiting at the edge of the system. And abandon everything we've worked for? Olivia asked. There has to be another way. John was quiet for a moment. Then he said, There might be, but it's dangerous and possibly treasonous. The team looked at him with confusion. Before we left Earth, Admiral Blackwood gave me classified information, John explained. Contingency plans for neutralizing each species in the Concord if necessary. Peter's face hardened. Safeguard protocols. They're above all our clearance levels. You knew about them? John asked, surprised. I knew they existed, Peter admitted. Not the details. Carol looked horrified. We have plans to... What? Kill them all? Not kill. Neutralize. John corrected, though the distinction felt meaningless. The point is, these plans exist because Earth fears the Concord species, and I'm betting they have similar plans for us. What are you suggesting? Sam asked quietly. I'm suggesting transparency, John said. What if I reveal portions of the safeguard protocols to the Council? Show them that we could have developed weapons against them but chose not to. It might prove our peaceful intentions. That's insane, Peter said flatly. Those protocols are classified for a reason. Revealing them would tell every species exactly how to protect themselves against our potential weapons. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Olivia suggested. If they know we know their weaknesses but haven't exploited them, it builds trust. John nodded. We need to break this cycle of suspicion before it's too late. You'll be court-martialed, Peter warned, possibly executed for treason. Not if it works, John replied, not if it prevents a war. He activated his communication panel and requested a direct line to Admiral Blackwood. It took nearly an hour for the connection to be established. When Blackwood's face appeared on the screen, she looked tired and angry. This better be important. Martinez, we're at Defense Condition 3. John outlined his plan quickly. Blackwood's expression darkened with every word. Absolutely not, she said when he finished. That information is classified at the highest level. Revealing it would be high treason. If we don't defuse this situation, John countered, we might find ourselves at war with the entire Concord. I believe transparency is our only option. They argued for nearly 30 minutes. Finally, Blackwood said, You're asking me to authorize the release of information that could compromise Earth security forever. I'm asking you to trust that understanding each other's capabilities will make us all safer, John replied. Fear and secrecy are what's driving us to war. Blackwood was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I can't authorize this, Martinez. If you do it, you're on your own. Earth will deny all knowledge of your actions. I understand, John said. Do you? Because it sounds like you're planning to sacrifice your career and possibly your life on a gamble. John looked at his team. Peter stood apart, his face unreadable. The others showed a mixture of fear and resolve. Sometimes the right path isn't the safe one, John said simply. Blackwood sighed. You always were an idealist, Martinez. God help you if you're wrong. The screen went dark. John turned to his team. I won't ask any of you to support this. Anyone who wants to leave can board the evacuation ship tomorrow. No one will blame you. No one moved. What's the plan? Sam asked. John looked at the black data pad on the table. First, we prepare a sanitized version of the safeguard protocols. Then I request an emergency council session for tomorrow. He paused. And then we either save the peace or destroy our careers. Peter finally spoke. For the record, I think this is a mistake, but I won't let you face it alone. John nodded gratefully. As his team began working on the presentation, he wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life. John did not sleep that night. He and his team worked through the station's artificial night cycle, carefully selecting which parts of the safeguard protocols to reveal. They removed specific technical details that could be used to develop actual weapons while keeping enough information to demonstrate Earth's knowledge of each species' vulnerabilities. As the station's lights brightened to simulate dawn, Carol finished the presentation files. Their eyes were red from lack of sleep, but their work was done. "This goes against everything I was trained to do," Peter said, looking at the screen with the classified information. "Keeping secrets is what keeps Earth safe." "Maybe out there," John said, pointing toward the stars visible through the window. "But in here, secrets are pushing us toward war." Olivia brought them all coffee, real coffee from their Earth supplies, not the strange alien substitute they had been offered. "Whatever happens today, we're with you, John." The emergency council session was set for midday. As John prepared to leave, Peter stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. "If this goes badly," Peter said quietly, "there's an emergency exit route through Maintenance Shaft 7B. It leads to Docking Bay 12, where our evacuation ship is waiting." John nodded, grateful for the information but hoping he wouldn't need it. The council chamber was packed with representatives from all 17 species. Security personnel lined the walls, a mix of different species, all armed. The tension in the room was almost physical, a heaviness in the air. Elsha called the session to order. "This council has gathered to address the growing conflict between Earth and the Zith Collective. Both parties will present their positions, after which the council will determine if intervention is necessary." Zekt spoke first, her translator, converting her clicks and chirps into harsh, angry words. "Humans have violated Zith space. They sent a ship to spy on our breeding grounds, then fabricated its disappearance to justify military action. We demand the immediate withdrawal of all human warships from our territory." General Powell responded via the communication system. "Earth categorically denies these accusations. Our mining vessel was on a legitimate operation when it vanished. We have evidence of Zith vessels in the area at the time. We demand the return of our people and a full accounting of Zith actions." Back and forth they went, accusations flying. Other species joined in, some supporting Earth, others the Zith. The Dralid representative, Vornthak, called for sanctions against the Zith. The Vox ambassador, a crystalline being named Silaris, suggested quarantining all human ships. John watched it all, feeling the situation slipping further out of control. Finally, Elsha called on him. "Ambassador Martinez, do you wish to speak for Earth?" John stood and moved to the center of the chamber. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. He placed his datapad on the display pedestal and took a deep breath. "Representatives of the conquered," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I come before you today not to make accusations or deny them, but to offer something no human has offered before. The truth." He activated the display system. The first image appeared above the pedestal, a detailed diagram of Zith neural physiology. Since first contact with the conquered 5 years ago, humanity has been afraid. We are new to interstellar relations. We are smaller and less advanced than many of you. So we did what frightened species do. We looked for ways to protect ourselves. The chamber had gone completely silent. Dzekt's antennae had frozen in place, a sign of intense focus. Earth developed what we call the safeguard protocols, detailed analyses of each conquered species' potential vulnerabilities. I am here to share portions of these protocols with you. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the chamber. John continued before anyone could stop him. We identified that the silica-based neural networks in Zith hive ships could be disabled with precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. He displayed the relevant information. We could have developed weapons to exploit this vulnerability, but we chose not to. He turned to face the Dralid section. We discovered that Dralid respiratory systems are vulnerable to certain compounds that are easy for humans to synthesize. Another diagram appeared. One by one, John displayed sanitized versions of the safeguard files for each species, the frequency vulnerabilities of Vox crystalline structures, the gravitational dependencies of Mirren technology, the biological weaknesses of the Traldar. The chamber remained silent, every representative frozen in shock or outrage. John could feel the weight of 17 species' attention focused entirely on him. I reveal this information not to threaten, but to build trust. Every species here has likely developed similar analyses of others' weaknesses. This is not malicious. It's simple prudence, but humanity chooses cooperation over conflict. John paused, then made his final move. To prove this, we're willing to share our own vulnerabilities as well. He displayed information about human physiology, defense systems, and critical infrastructure, information that could be catastrophic in the wrong hands. We could destroy each other, or we could protect each other. Earth chooses the latter. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Zicht rose from her platform, her body language unreadable to human eyes. This revelation is unprecedented, she said finally. No species has ever voluntarily exposed such knowledge. Elsha floated forward. Ambassador Martinez, do you have authorization from your government for this disclosure? John hesitated only briefly. I take full responsibility for my actions today. The Vox representative, Solaris, made a sound like cracking glass. Their version of laughter or perhaps shock. The human reveals species-ending secrets and does so without permission. Fascinating. Vornthak of the Dralid stood tall on his 6 legs. This could be a clever ploy. Perhaps these vulnerabilities are false, designed to make us lower our guard. They are not false, Tizikt said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. The information about Zith neural networks is accurate. Too accurate. Our own scientists discovered this vulnerability only 30 cycles ago. One by one, other representatives confirmed the accuracy of John's revelations. The information was real, and now it was public. Elsha called for order as the chamber erupted in multiple conversations. This council will recess for 3 hours to consider this unprecedented development. Ambassador Martinez will remain in protective custody until we reconvene. 2 security officers, a Miran and a Traldar, approached John. He handed his datapad to Olivia and whispered, "If I don't return, use the evacuation route." As John was led from the chamber, he caught a glimpse of his team's faces. Peter looked grim but gave him a small nod of respect. Sam and Carol were clearly worried. Olivia simply mouthed, "Good luck." John was taken to a small empty room with no windows. The door closed behind him with a final sounding click. He sat on the single chair and waited, wondering if he had just saved the peace or doomed his species to destruction. John Martinez sat alone in the small holding room for 3 hours. No one came to speak with him. There was no screen, no way to know what was happening outside. He wondered if Earth had already disowned him, if his career, and possibly his life, were over. He wondered if his team was safe. Most of all, he wondered if he had made the right choice. The door finally opened. The Miran security officer gestured for John to follow. They walked through quiet corridors back to the council chamber. John noticed that the usual crowds were missing. The entire level seemed to have been cleared of all but essential personnel. When they reached the council chamber, John was surprised by the new arrangement. Instead of the usual raised platforms in a semicircle, the representatives were seated in a circle on the main floor. In the center was a holographic display showing a composite of information, pieces of the safeguard protocols alongside similar documents in alien writing systems. Elsha floated in the center of the circle. "Ambassador Martinez, please join us." John walked slowly to an empty seat in the circle. He scanned the faces of the representatives, trying to read their expressions. Some species were impossible for him to understand, but others showed clear emotions, curiosity, wariness, respect, and in a few cases what looked like admiration. "The council has spent the last 3 hours in intense discussion," Elsha said. "Your revelation has forced us to confront an uncomfortable truth." Vornthak, the eldest Dralid, spoke next. Each species represented here had indeed developed similar contingency plans. Each of us had been preparing for betrayal while speaking of trust. The hypocrisy was uncomfortable. John looked around the circle. No one contradicted Vornthak's statement. Tizikt stepped forward. her insectoid form moving with careful precision. The missing vessel has been found. Her translator conveyed no emotion, but her body language seemed less hostile than before. It suffered a drive malfunction and drifted into an uninhabited system. All crew are alive. Relief washed over John. Thank you for this news. It changes everything. No, said Solaris, the crystalline vox. Your revelation changed everything. The ship was merely the trigger. Elsha moved to the center of the circle. This council has made a decision. We will establish a new protocol. All member species will disclose their contingency plans and destroy all weapons designed specifically to exploit others' vulnerabilities. John couldn't believe what he was hearing. All species will do this? All species must, said the Traldar. Representative, a massive being named Grush. Or they cannot remain in the Concord. We will form a joint security council, Elsha continued. A place where concerns can be addressed openly instead of through secrecy and fear. Ambassador Martinez, Earth will be invited to send a representative to this council. John nodded slowly, taking in the magnitude of what was happening. Earth will be honored to participate. There is one more matter, Vornthak said. Your world will want to know why you revealed classified information without authorization. John straightened in his seat. I am prepared to face the consequences of my actions. Perhaps this will help, Elsha said, gesturing to the communication system. The screen activated, showing Admiral Blackwood's stern face. She looked directly at John. Ambassador Martinez, the Council has informed us of recent developments. While your methods were unorthodox, the results appear positive. The missing miners have been located alive, and a diplomatic crisis has been averted. John waited for the but he was sure was coming. The President has authorized me to state that while the disclosure was not pre-approved, your actions are retroactively sanctioned given the exceptional circumstances. You are to remain at your post and represent Earth in these new joint security discussions. John couldn't hide his surprise. Thank you, Admiral. Blackwood's expression softened slightly. Don't thank me yet, Martinez. You've created a lot of work for all of us, but perhaps it needed to be done. Her image disappeared. Elsha addressed the council once more. This meeting is adjourned. The Joint Security Council will convene in 3 days to begin its work. Ambassador Martinez, you may return to your embassy. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, several approached John. Sekt came first, her antennae moving in what John recognized as a gesture of respect. Your species has courage, she said simply before moving away. John found his team waiting anxiously outside the chamber. Their faces showed relief when they saw him. You're not under arrest, Peter said, sounding genuinely surprised. Not only that, John replied, but apparently I'm still employed. Back at the embassy, John told his team everything that had happened. They listened in amazement as he described the Council's decision to form a joint security arrangement. So they all had their own versions of safeguard, Olivia said. I guess fear is universal. But so is the desire for peace, Sam added. Otherwise they wouldn't have agreed to this new arrangement. Carol looked thoughtful. What happens now? Do we just trust each other? Trust but verify, Peter said. That's how it always works. John walked to the window and looked out at the 3 stars surrounding the station. We start building something better than fear. It won't be easy or quick, but it's possible now. That evening, John received a private message on his datapad. It was from Admiral Blackwood. Martinez. Not how I would have handled it, but I can't. Argue with results. Your new orders are to formalize this Joint Security Council. Seems you've found your calling after all. One more thing. I need to know if you kept copies of the safeguard files, or if you disclosed everything to the Council. John thought carefully before typing his response. Admiral, all safeguard files have been disclosed and will be destroyed as part of the new agreement. The same applies to similar files from other species. I believe this transparency, while frightening, is our best path to genuine security. He hesitated before adding, as the Earth representative on the Joint Security Council, I'll ensure that humanity remains protected while building genuine trust with our galactic neighbors. Sometimes the strongest position comes from openness, rather than secrecy. John sent the message, then deleted the last traces of the safeguard files from his data pad. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time since arriving at the station, he felt like humanity truly belonged among the stars. Outside his window, the 3 stars of the Concord system continued their eternal dance, their light mingling in the space between them, separate sources coming together to create something greater than themselves alone. Just like the species of the Concord now had the chance to do. John Martinez, the ambassador who revealed humanity's darkest contingency plans, smiled at the stars and prepared for the work ahead. The path forward would not be easy, but it would, be honest, and that, he believed, made all the difference.